Get your questions ready for the Fishing Call-In Show. 1 hour. We have a panel to answer all your questions. 1-800-944-4664.
Tastes like victory.
Deal with Sugar over here. She good dog?
She's 3.5. She's with me all the time.
Hello and welcome to Kentucky Afield. I'm Tim Farmer. Tonight we have a special 1 hour call-in show all about fishing in Kentucky. And these guys hate fishing, but they're going to talk about it anyway. First to my left, Jeff Ross is the Assistant Director of Fisheries. Thanks for being here. Yep. To his left, Ryan Oster, who's Fisheries Program Coordinator.
That is it.
And to his left, BJ McCoy, Law Enforcement Officer. We got a bunch of questions tonight. Number to call, 1-800-944-4664. And if you want to get on our Facebook page, we're going to take a few questions from there as well. And right off the bat, everybody's talking about, and this is from Micah Sievers, with the recent carp die-off, is there a chance of harnessing a virus to manage them and maybe use that virus if we figure out what's going on?
Well, we first got to figure out what's going on. You know, we had just mainly silver carp die, a lot of them, not any other species, so probably not oxygen or anything else. So it could be stress related from a bad winter, but we're also looking at viruses and other things. So we sent the fish off to a lab in Georgia, along with KSU here in Frankfurt, and we'll see what happens. But a lot of people are really interested to see what's going on here.
Todd Jameson, can I jug fish for catfish in Kentucky?
You can jug fish for catfish in Kentucky.
I hope so, because I'm doing
yes. But if it's a department-owned or managed lake, it must be 500 acres or larger.
And how many jugs can you have? A lot of people are using these noodles now. They're a lot easier to carry. How many can you have?
If you're fishing in a boat by yourself, you can have 50. If you're fishing in a boat with another person, there is a boat limit that is also 50.
Gotcha. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do a few Facebook questions while the phone bank is bringing some questions in. And I hear this one a lot. BJ, this is for you. Can you carry a firearm while out in a boat?
It is legal to carry a firearm on the boat. The only thing that you need to be concerned about is make sure it's not concealed unless you have a concealed deadly weapons permit. And like I tell everybody that I check in the boats, if an officer comes up to you and checks your license or just comes close to you, always preempt his arrival with, "Hey, officer, I've got a gun on my hip," or "I've got a gun in my tackle box," just to let us know. Just to make everybody a little safer.
Gotcha. And Bobby is from Robertson County. What's the difference between a daily limit and a possession limit?
A daily limit is the maximum number of sport fish that you're allowed to keep in a specific day. In Kentucky, it runs a calendar day. The possession limit is dealing with processed fish that you have. For instance, if you go on a camping trip and you're fishing for 2 days, your possession limit is double whatever the daily limit is. Whenever it comes to processed fish, we're not talking about fish in your freezer, so you don't have to worry about how many you've got in your freezer.
And we want to thank tonight. We have some friends answering the phone. We also have the U of L Bass Fishing Club. You know what? I love what these guys are doing, but I'm a little bit upset that they didn't have a bass fishing club when I went to school. Is that just wrong?
I think I would have failed school if they had it. So I know I would have
only gone to the fishing class. I mean, that's the only. Thanks, guys, for helping us out, and they're going to be on the show here for a long because they're a great bunch of guys. Larry is from Whitley County Bass Tournament fisherman. Bass, he says, are going on the nest. I think we've been noticing some of that. How long will they stay on the nest?
Probably run through maybe the lower 70s or so, somewhere in that time frame. So we got a little bit of time to catch them up there.
Gotcha. Fred's from Louisville. Why are white bass and hybrid striped bass managed collectively under a statewide 15-inch daily limit with only 5 over 15?
That's a identification issue. It just makes it a lot easier for, you know, law enforcement guys and everybody else. You know, when they're smaller sizes, a lot of times it's hard to tell them apart. So it just makes it easier to group them together. Steve
is from Jefferson County. Can you fish with a disability license?
A disability license, it has everything that a sportsman's license has, so it does include your fishing license, but you have to have your disability card issued from the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Douglas is from Bullitt County. What's the age limit on getting a fishing license? At what point do you have to do that?
16 years old. Once you turn 16, you need a fishing license.
TJ is from Menifee County, and he says, how delayed is the fishing report from when we see it on the Kentucky Afield TV show? I'll take that one. And, you know, the great thing about our fishing report is the fact that we call biologists at the first of every week. Now, we get that on a Tuesday, sometimes a Wednesday. The show airs on that weekend, so it's very current. So whenever, I mean, things are not going to change that much unless, you know, we get another snowstorm, which I kind of doubt. DT is from Irvin. If you're standing on your own property on the Kentucky River, do you need a license?
If it is property that you own, then technically you are fishing on your own property. In that situation, some of the rivers have different boundary marks, so you'd want to call your local conservation officer in that situation, because some rivers you may not own to the water. It may be someone else's property.
David is from Shelby County. What are the crappie regulations on Taylorsville Lake?
There's a 9-inch minimum size limit on crappie. That's both white and black together, and the daily creel limit is 15.
Don is from Fayette County. Is it possible to catch white bass at night using lanterns or lights on Harrington Lake?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd say that's a big yes.
I know a lot of people that do it. So that's one of the best fisheries out there at Harrington.
Okay, Frank is from Scott County. I heard there were fish habitat locations on your website. How can I find them?
A lot of people don't realize that our guys, when they put out fishing structures, they GPS them, and we've got a lot of lakes up on our website, and you can click on the fish icon, and I think you go to recreational fishing, and then there's a link right down there under where to fish that says lakes with fishing attractors.
And here's the way to get a hold of us right here, Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. If you want to send us some mail, do that at No. 1 Sportsman Lane, Frankfort, Kentucky 40601, or call 1-800-858-1549. We have the absolute best information people in the world. They will help you out. Or www.fw.ky.gov.
You've said that a time or two.
You know what? I had a tough time getting all the W's out with that tripping all the time. Jerry's from Martin County. Can you use a treble hook to catch catfish?
Yes.
Yep. Well, heck yeah.
A lot of people do.
Okay, excuse me. Mark is from Cave City. Are there any hybrid trout?
We've got
Lake Cumberland.
Yeah, we stock well, it's not a hybrid, we stock a sterile trout, so they don't put a lot of energy into reproduction, and we're hoping that they'll grow a lot faster and soon to catch some very big rainbows down there.
Ronald is from Warren County. Are they going to put walleye in Barron Lake?
They are stocking walleye in the Barron River above the lake. That's native strain walleye. What we have found is that some of those walleye have migrated down into the lake and actually have gone through the dam and are developing quite a big fishery below the lake in Barron. So,
wow.
So yes.
Larry's from Oldham County, and he wants to know if they could ever get a Finns Lake in Oldham County.
We are close to maxed out, but we always are looking for possibilities. So it's got to be a fairly small lake, good access, good facilities for families and kids. So if he has an idea, he can call into our number and let us know, and we'll take a look at it.
Tim's from Indiana, and we want to thank our viewers from Indiana, Ohio, and all our border states. If you catch a catfish, can you sell it to a pay lake without a permit to do so?
No, you cannot. In the state of Kentucky, you cannot.
Gail Robinson is from Pendleton County, and what are your privileges of having a trout stamp?
Pretty much allows you to keep any trout that you catch, you have to have a trout stamp if you plan to keep trout. If you're just going to go out trout fishing and let them go, you don't need one except if you're on the Cumberland tailwater, and then you need one no matter what you're doing down there.
Larry's from Whitley County. Are the walleyes, are they done nesting? And when do they typically nest?
I would say that for most of our fisheries in Kentucky, yes, the walleye should be about done. Most of our water temperatures I'm hearing about now are well into the 60s, and walleye are usually done by then.
Chase is from Jessamine County. Why is there a law for commercial fishing for catfish can only keep 1 blue per day? It says it's the Ohio Ripper.
They're working on a regulation for commercial anglers. It's still got a committee to go through, but if it passes, it would be 1 fish above 35 inches for both flathead and blue catfish, and then 1 fish over 28 inches for channel cats, and then there's a slightly different regulation down below, but we're still in the works on that.
Tanya's from Scott County. What's the keeper limit for striper on Lake Cumberland this year?
It's 2 fish, 22 inches.
Steve's from Bullitt County. If he's got a bunch of turtles in his pond, does that hurt his fish population?
I would say probably not really. I mean, they steal bait and such, but I don't think it's going to have an impact on your population in your lake.
Richard is from Lewis County. This is one of the questions we get every year, and I'm glad we do because we can talk about this and solve this problem. They filleted a bluegill from his pond, and guess what was in it?
Grubs.
Grubs.
Yes.
And he wants to know, how do you get rid of them? Do they hurt? Hurt you if you eat them?
There's really nothing you can do to get rid of them. It's a natural parasite that involves a bird as the host. The bird defecates in the water, the grubs are in there, they hatch, and then they must find a fish to complete their life cycle. They won't harm you. Sometimes they can be unsightly to look at, but as long as you cook the fish properly, cook it to a good temperature, they won't harm you.
All right, this question, Andy from Carroll County and Gerald Burton on Facebook want to know how can you positively identify a mean-mouthed bass?
Well, I think probably you would need to be sending that in to get tested. They kind of look like a mix between a smallmouth and a spotted bass, but they can take many different variations. So even we have a lot of trouble ourselves. We have to send them in and have them looked at.
Scott's from Murray. Can he carry a snagging hook in his boat?
A snagging hook. Well, it depends on what he's snagging for. For instance, if you've got material like a gig for a frog, you're not allowed to have it in your boat if it's not actually frog gigging season. A snagging hook, if he's in a water and he wants to go snagging, and it's, there's so many different regulations on so many different lakes, he'd have to refer to his hunting and fishing guide, or his fishing guide rather. But as far as just having it, if it's for fish, no. But if it's for frogs, there's certain times where you cannot have one.
Steve is from Belton, is what it says. They're using people. Are they using people from Kentucky to catch Asian carp?
We've got commercial fishers are out trying to get as many as they can. We have several processors in the state that are taking them from the commercial fishers and exporting them and using them domestically. So yeah, we do have a lot of people within Kentucky. Pretty much everybody, is from Kentucky that's doing it right now.
Larry is from Washington County. Where are the walleye in Green River Lake?
Right now is a hard time. I'm a walleye fisherman. This is that hard time of year. The fish are done spawning. They're slowly starting to filter back into the main lake. So if I were you, I'd troll some crankbaits along main lake points, stay at about the mid depths, and you'll be catching those fish as they filter back towards the main lake to spend the summer.
Barry is from Crittenden. He has a private lake. Can he put bass from Florida in his lake?
We would probably recommend not to, but I'm not sure regulation-wise, I guess you can, but...
And if he's bringing them himself, he would have to have several permits, from every state that he's going into, so it probably wouldn't be feasible for him to do that.
Keith is from Pendleton County. On department-owned lakes with a 10 horsepower limit, are you allowed to have a large motor on your boat if you don't use it?
Yes, and we have several lakes that have a potential proposed regulation to allow those larger boats. There's 8 lakes that we have to operate at idle speed, so that will be coming up in our next fisheries committee meeting, and we'll see how that goes.
Shay, do Native Americans need a fishing license in Kentucky?
Yes, in our KRS, there's no exemption for that. Only exemptions are for landowners, tenants, and some persons of military status.
Terry from Muhlenberg County, when do catfish start spawning in Kentucky? He's down around Barkley and Kentucky Lake.
I'd say, you know, if he's down around Kentucky and Barkley Lake, the channels are probably going to start spawning, you know, I'd say in the mid-70s degree temperature range, and the blues probably going to go a little bit before them, flatheads probably just a little bit after them. So you're probably looking anywhere typically around that section of the state, anywhere from the end of May all through June.
So you can take me when they get to bite down?
I'll try, if you believe it, yeah.
John's from Scott County, are there any suggestions on how to catch catfish on Elkhorn Creek?
People that I know who do really well on there, they fish the deep holes in the middle of summer with a various form of live baits, worms, prepared stink baits. Just find those deeper holes in the summer once it starts to get dry, and that's typically where those catfish pool up in large concentration.
Joseph's from Bracken County. How can he find out where the Finns Lake are in northern Kentucky?
The best way to do it is go to our website, fw.ky.gov, and I think under recreational fishing there should be a fishing in neighborhoods link, and it gives a map of every lake that we have in the state.
Ollie is from Scott County. Will public access to Elkhorn Creek be reopened for Pfeiffer Fish Hatchery? Pfeiffer Fish Hatchery. Boy, say that 5 times.
I think that's open now,
It should be open.
Yeah, there was some construction going on, but I think it's open now.
Bill's from Breckenridge County. Why are there no smallmouth bass in Rough River?
A lot of that has to do with the type of habitat they need, the cooler water in deeper depths, and a lot of our lakes are just too fertile to provide that, and some lakes they just don't do well in.
Carl's from Marshall County. Is it legal to kill Asian carp? I hope so, because I kill the fire out of them.
The more the better.
Apparently a lot of them just croaked. And again, we touched on that earlier. There's been a massive die-off.
Big kill. I mean, one of our biologists estimated 500,000. We'll have to, see. That's a lot of fish.
Bet it smells good down there.
Yeah, they actually opened up some gates to try to push them out of that tailwater area.
And one thing about it, if you do like to shoot fish with archery equipment, like I absolutely love to do, one thing we would highly recommend is don't take those fish to the boat ramp and lay them out there for everybody to look at, and then every time somebody puts a boat in, they have this unpleasant smell of these rotting fish. It's very easy to puncture these fish, the air bladder, let them go to the bottom, use them for fertilizer, or better yet, take a couple and eat them.
Yeah, they're good.
I'm telling you, they really are good. The people laugh at me, farmer, you will eat anything. It's really good fish.
They are.
It really is. Dan is from Pulaski County. I'm 70 years old. Do I need a fishing license?
Yes, as of right now, anybody over the age of 16 needs a fishing license. He would be eligible to get a senior license. It's $5, and that covers hunting, fishing, just about everything he can imagine we want to do.
You know, and I'm going to say something that I don't mean to be taken out of context, but I'm a disabled vet. I don't have to get a license, but I know where the money goes, and it takes money to fund the Department of Fish and Wildlife. If you want to go out and catch fish, you're going to have to catch them. If you can afford to buy that license, I would like to see people do that.
And you know, Tim, that's a good, and this is kind of my role with the agency. A lot of people don't realize that with the purchase of your fishing license, that returns back to Kentucky federal sport fish restoration monies for the department that we then put back into hatching fish, stocking fish, building boat ramps, doing aquatic ed programs. If we don't sell licenses, that money goes to other states. So long story short, you want more money to come to Kentucky, buy a license.
And we got it going on in Kentucky. I mean, okay, I'm sorry, I'm bragging. But I mean, look at Kentucky right now.
Yep.
We got it going on, so let's keep that happening. Dean is from Jefferson County. Where exactly do you stock trout in Floyd's Fork Creek?
Right now, it's very close to where 64 goes over the creek there. As the park expands, we'll expand our stocking sites, but for the most part, it's right in that region, just upstream?
Just upstream.
Of the 64.
Larry is from Tennessee. Thanks for watching down in Tennessee. Can you fish in Kentucky with a Tennessee license?
There are certain bordering waters where you can use either a Kentucky or Tennessee license. Once again, and I'll refer to this a lot for a lot of questions, you really need to get in touch with your local game warden. You can go to our website, it'll say find my contact, and you can find the local game warden in that area, because in different counties it's going to be different, but in general, like for instance on the Ohio River, you can have a Kentucky license and you can fish on the Indiana side, vice versa, Indiana can fish on the Kentucky side. And I guess he's talking about, was it Dale?
Tennessee
Dale
probably
Hollow,
has Big South
Yeah.
Fork, Dale Hollow,
and then Kentucky Lake.
Yep.
And I know on Kentucky Lake from the 6880 bridge down to US 79,
79
I don't know.
Paris Landing.
That is reciprocal.
That is
licenses.
reciprocal, with the exception of Blood River. Tennessee anglers cannot come into Blood River. So,
Okay, getting a few more questions on Facebook. Don Johnson, haven't seen him in a while.
Nice
He
coat.
used to be down in Miami.
he was the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants to know, is it legal in Kentucky to trap, oops. That's a loaded question. To trap and sell crawdads. Got my words a little mixed up there.
You can trap and sell crawdads with the appropriate licenses. If he wanted to trap and sell crawdads, he would need to have a commercial fishing license in order to trap them and to sell them. And that will cost him a little bit of money. So he can, but he's going to have to dish out a little license money.
It's going to take you a while.
It's going to take a while to recover. Trish is from Ohio. Thanks for your Ohio viewers. What do you do if you see a salamander fish? And I suppose she's talking about maybe a hellbender.
Yeah.
Hellbender.
They're supposed to report those. Call our department. We've got a couple biologists that are very interested in where they found them. So call in and let them know. Try to remember where you found it. And
She's scared of them.
They're not poisonous. They're very non-aggressive.
She wants to know if they're
Yeah.
dangerous. Should you call your
No,
authorities? But you
no.
do need to tell people that
Yes,
you've seen one.
yes.
All right. Can you catch catfish on Harrington Lake? Chase from Jefferson County wants to know.
Yes, you can. That's Harrington Lake is a very good catfish lake, a very good flathead catfish lake, actually.
And you can set jugs because it's
Yes, you
over
can.
500
It's
acres.
over 500 acres.
Mary's from Louisville. Where can you fish for trout? And I
We've
know
got
it's-
it. Yeah, the best thing to do is go to our fishing and boating guide, and there's a whole trout section, and it lists all the stream. We got them in streams, Finns Lakes, big lakes, tailwaters, and they just find the county you want to go to, and it tells you the dates, the months that we stock them, and how many trout we put in there. So the whole state has trout somewhere close to you.
Close by.
Okay, Wendell Harris from Powell County. If you're over 65, do you still need a trout stamp?
That comes with the.
If you have a senior license, that's included.
Included in that. Garrison Hillard is from Ohio, and again, thanks to the Ohio viewers. Would like to know more about fishing boundaries between states, especially Ohio. I suppose he means on the river there.
Okay. If you take the river, and not including any of the inner tributaries or any rivers or creeks, you can fish both sides with either license. For instance, if I'm in Kentucky, if I'm in Boone County, I can go across the river onto the Ohio side, fish on the land in Ohio as long as I have permission to be there, and use my Kentucky license. However, whenever I am over in Ohio, I have to abide by the Ohio creel and size limits, and vice versa. An Ohio individual can come over to the Kentucky side and do the same thing.
Here's an interesting question. Robin's from Boone County. Can he fish on a homeowners association lake without his license? If he's in the homeowners association and they have a lake there?
No, that is not. Some cases he may be the owner, he may be able to, but in general, no. And once again, I'm gonna throw out, call your local game warden, say, hey, here's my lake. What do you think? Can I fish without a license?
For people just tuning in, a lot of people may have not known the show was on tonight, and they may be tuning in early. But let's revisit the Asian carp situation below Barclay. We're getting a lot of questions on that. Yeah. Robert is from Central City and wants to know what's going on.
We had a whole lot of silver carp die over the past couple days, and we're sending them into the labs to try to figure out what's going on. We've kind of ruled out oxygen or chemicals or something. We think it's either a stress-related or potentially some kind of virus thing, which a lot of states are interested in to see what might take out a bunch of Asian carp. It's the first fish kill I think I've cheered for in my life. So.
Billy's from Henderson. He has a pond that's 1 acre. What size should the pond be to put crappie in?
Usually a lot bigger than that.
I usually don't suggest people stock crappie in a pond unless it's at least 30 to 40 acres in size, and that's a pretty big pond. They just tend to overpopulate.
Tony's from Mercer County. Do the inoperable locks on the Kentucky River affect each pool's fish population? That seems like he's just not catching as many fish lately. Yeah, you know, at some level of flooding, you know, some of those lower level dams do go underwater. So and fish do migrate over those dams at certain periods of time. But for those people who aren't aware, I believe the Kentucky River Authority will be operating locks 4 and 3 this summer. And I believe their long-term goal is to also open up 2 and 1 as well. So it's cool. Not going to be in the long too distant future that you'll be able to lock through on these things. Billy's from Henderson. How long will a largemouth bass live, and what is their growth rate?
Very specific to the productivity of the lake, but we've got fish we got at a Kincaid Lake that were 16. Yeah. And, you know, if they're growing real fast, they could burn out a lot quicker. But, you know, we can get them up to 16 years old and probably a little older than that.
And on average in the state, I'd say, you know, 3 years to 12 inches, 5 years to 15 inches. That's an average for the state. West Kentucky, they're generally going to grow a little faster because it's more fertile. East Kentucky, they typically grow a little slower.
Scott's from Clark County. He's talking about Beaver Lake. There was a dock down there that was run by some individuals, and it's apparently not operating now. Do we plan to renovate that, or is anybody else going to run that?
Yeah, we the lease that we had with the Sportsman's Club there is done, so we're not going to start that dock back up as far as facilities there, but we are going to try to renovate the area. No launching fees. We'll clean it up, probably redo a lot of the parking area, and, you know, make it real nice down there, but there won't be any launching fee. There isn't now. So,
Lee's from Anderson County. Are there going to be more public access places for the Kentucky River and Elkhorn Creek?
Well, our voluntary public access program may be coming back from what I heard.
Yeah, with the passage of the recent Farm Bill, there is a voluntary public access component that I'm sure our agency will apply for funding. As far as more access on the Kentucky River, we're always willing and looking for more access. So if you know of a site that could work for us, contact us, and you know, just let their department know, and they'll get you in charge with the person who can help you out.
James is from Hardin County and seems to have noticed smallmouth population decline in Green River Lake. Is that something we've noticed, or is maybe he using the wrong bait?
I haven't heard much about that. You know, we'll check with our biologists, see what they see. But smallmouth are tough for us to sample, so a lot of times we struggle to get real good data on them.
When we get a bunch of questions, I'm assuming that maybe folks are tuning in later, so a couple of them I'm going to touch on again when we get just bunches of them. Here's one again. Let's revisit the parasites in the bluegill. This is Ray, and he wants to know, are they okay to eat if you fry the fish?
Yeah, they're fine to eat. Again, they can be unsightly to look at in the fillet, but it's a parasite that is not normal for humans. It's a part of Mother Nature involving birds, typically a great blue heron and fish. So yeah, just cook the fish thoroughly and it's safe to eat.
William Wells is from Washington County. Wants to know what kind of enforcement on bow hunters are shooting carp below the Kentucky tailwaters in Barkley Dam. I guess he wants to know what the rules and regulations are for those guys down there shooting carp with archery equipment.
Well, the regulations down there would be statewide. A bow hunter is allowed 5 catfish of either kind, whatever that may be, altogether, and 2 paddlefish. The paddlefish, they can't be coiled. You have to take them in your possession. And I fish down there a lot, and he may be complaining about, you know, there are some people who will throw the carcasses on the bank. If you do throw your fish carcass on the bank, it is littering. and if you're caught, you will get cited. And just to take up for bow fishers, if a true bow fisher sees somebody do that, they're going to fly off the handle. A real bow fisher will not do that, and there's a lot of people that do it, and just one or two people can make it unsightly for all.
Dale's from Boyle County. What are some techniques to catch walleye year-round?
With some of the best techniques to catch walleye, trolling bottom bouncer rigs with worm harnesses is a great technique to catch them all summer long at Lake Cumberland and Green. Trolling deep diving crankbaits is really good. Oftentimes our walleyes will go deep, 25, 30 feet deep in the summer. They like that cool water. So I'd say those are the top two techniques, trolling deep diving crankbaits and bottom bouncer rigs with worm harnesses.
Paul's from Taylor County. Are white bass running?
Most of what I've heard says the white bass have already run and are about finished. I know they are at Taylorsville and at Nolin. Most of the people started catching them about 3 weeks ago, and they're already done running.
Bill's from Meade County. What happened to the yellow belly catfish? I used to catch them all the time. I suppose he's talking about the bullhead catfish.
I don't know. I can't believe a whole lot.
Go to Bullock
could happen
Bend.
to them.
Yeah. Gist
I don't
Creek
know.
has a
Gist
good
Creek has
population.
Okay, now if you see me throwing a question away, I'm not ignoring your question. That means that it's a repeat question. We get a bunch, I mean a massive amount of questions. You guys like to fish, and we like that. John from Boone County, they're going to put a state dock on Bullock Pen. Speaking of Bullock Pen.
Are they going to put us?
And when they say state dock, I'm assuming maybe a...
Probably talking about a small
a boat ramp or something.
Right,
Yeah,
like
we did meet with the operator of the boat dock up there recently to talk about the need and the possibility for a boat ramp renovation project, and we're still in ongoing discussions with that operator right now.
Ethan is from Christian County. Is there a limit on catfish in a private pond?
None unless no. You can put your own limit on there if you want to. But.
They don't typically reproduce, so if you want them to last a while.
Gary's from Bullock County, has a half-acre pond, 6 to 7 foot deep. He's having a problem with green stringy moss.
Filamentous algae. Yeah. Best thing is to confirm that. They call our local biologist for his county. They're probably going to tell him to treat it with a Cutrine Plus, which is a copper type compound that he can apply. So. Just be careful trying to kill it all out at one time. It can cause fish kills during the summer.
Jason is from Kenton County. Is it legal to use a cast net to catch bait fish?
Yes. There are certain areas where you can't.
It's got to be over 500 acres.
It has to be a 500-acre lake or larger. There are some restrictions on some rivers and some creeks. He needs to refer to his fishing guide, and it will tell you all the little ins and outs that you can and can't do.
Dave's from Shelby County. Why, or has a size limit been passed on commercial fishing for catfish in the Ohio River?
It's close. There's one more committee it's got to pass, so we'll just see how that goes, but it's partway through.
Bill is from Indiana. Thanks for watching over there. He owns property in Kentucky. Does he need a Kentucky license to fish on his property in Kentucky?
Yes, he would. In Kentucky, to be a resident, you have to have your dwelling here in the state of Kentucky for 30 days or more. And by being an Indiana resident, when he comes over here, he is a non-resident.
And excuse me for my hacking. It seems like all the trees have bloomed at once. And these last 2 days, I'm so happy that I have not sneezed 26,000 times. Of course, the show's still here. Nelson is from Mason County. Do you have to have a fishing license to fish in a pay lake?
If that pay lake is licensed by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, then he does not. So whenever you walk in and pay your dues or whatever it may be, make sure you ask, because if they are not licensed by us, you may be subject to a fine.
Margie from Campbell County, when will the fish license plate be out?
That's a good question. I was actually asking that the other day.
Yeah.
I know our Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Foundation is working hard on that.
Jeff is from Pendleton County. What's the department doing to replenish catfish in the Ohio River? A lot of catfishermen.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on some regulations that'll be directed at both commercial fishing and sport fish, and what we've picked out for such regulations should help the populations dramatically. So we'll be monitoring that through the years.
Mark is from Grayson County. What's the reproductive age of the flathead catfish?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
This might be the
we may have a
catfish show
stumper.
tonight.
Yeah, we may have a stumper.
I'd say, you know, they take a little bit longer to mature than say a bass or a bluegill or crappie. I'd probably say I'm trying to remember back to my fish hatchery guys talking to me. I'd say you're probably talking at least in excess of 5 years.
Patrick is from Indiana. Is Kentucky going to have a free fishing weekend?
Yes, every year is the first full weekend in June, and this year it falls on the 7th and 8th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's right.
Frankie is from Mason County. Are the Eagles going to catch any carp in the Ohio River?
I'm sure they'll catch some,
Yeah.
but unless we got a 1.5 million eagle,
Yeah.
problem. No, they will get some.
Yeah.
Mary wants to know, when will they open Lock 8?
On the Kentucky River, it
I
is my
think so.
understanding that they are not. The long-range plans are not to go that far up the Kentucky River. It's Lock 4 on down.
Kevin is from Johnson County. Do you have any advice on bank fishing in Yatesville, Paintsville, and Dewey Lakes?
I know at Dewey Lake there's a good deal of bank access for catfishermen in particular on a large section of that lake. As far as Paintsville and Yatesville,
Yeah, and that's a good question that points to the fact that our biologists are really good and informed. And Kevin Fry in the Eastern District, give Kevin a call. His number's in our guide. He can point him in a lot of good directions.
Barbara's from Spencer County. What's the status of blue-green algae?
Probably talking about the harmful algal blooms. Looks like, you know, the state recently started testing and the Corps started testing, so they've probably been around a lot longer than people think, and I don't see it disappearing anytime soon. It's just something you need to be aware of, the lakes that have them. If you're cleaning, the fish are fine to eat. When you're cleaning them, make sure you wash them with fresh water instead of lake water. If you've got pets, probably best to wash them off if they go swimming in the lake, and just I'd be more worried about the pets than, you know, some of the other things. So just make sure they're not drinking a lot of that water. If it looks like an oil spill on the surface piled up in there, just be careful and wash your pets off and try to keep them from drinking out of there.
Isaiah is from Gallatin County. How do you tell the difference between a striped bass and a hybrid striped bass?
very good. You can look at what biologists, there's a tooth patch on the tongue of that fish. You can look at that. I believe that the hybrid striped bass has a two-part tooth patch.
Somewhat joined.
Yeah, somewhat joined, whereas the striped bass, it's solid. The other thing I like to tell people is, and it's not as definite a characteristic, but typically your striped bass is going to have solid lines going across its body all the way across, whereas the hybrid striped bass is going to have broken lines. And that gets back to a question we had earlier today. A lot of times those hybrids are difficult to tell.
Jimmy wants to know, how many fish from the Ohio River can you eat? Are there any place?
There's
warnings
consumption
out there?
advisories, on the Ohio River, but the advisories are out there to allow you to eat, a certain amount of fish and enjoy the fish that you catch. But you should probably stick to the numbers, and we have all those consumption advisories in our fishing and boating guide. So it just reduces your health risk to, stay within those limits. But you can eat fish out of the river.
Robbie is from Fayette County. How long will it take strappers to come back to trophy size in Cumberland? They want the glory days back.
I think it's going to happen quite fast, to be honest with you.
And what is the situation with lake levels down there?
Well, the lake is going to return to normal summer pool this year, which is 723 feet above sea level. Last time I checked the other day, it was only about 10 feet shy of reaching that, so,
wow.
So they're doing pretty good. We're going to see a new lake effect out of Lake Cumberland. All that vegetation and those trees is going to become flooded. Those fish are going to have great nursery habitat for the young, a lot of forage production, so this fish should grow well over these next couple of years, and those striped bass should respond quite well.
Ralph is from Madison County. If shad are already in Cedar Creek Lake, can you use them for bait?
Yes, but now this year you can only use the shad or your bait in that lake. So if you catch it in Cedar Creek, you can't take it to another lake, or you can't take it past the dam down below the tailwaters and use it. You have to, whatever body of water you catch the bait is where you're going to have to use the bait.
Mike is from Davis County. When will they finish Kingfisher Lake?
I think the plan is, we've had a couple wet years, but they're hoping to get it dried out, and I think the work will be going on late summer or fall of this year. So we had a little delay there, but hopefully by winter time.
Dorothy's from Johnson County. Are they stocking Paintsville Lake with crappie? If so, when?
We have been putting crappie in the lake, but it's not a standard stocking, and I'm not even sure if we're doing it this year. So it's not something where you would go out the day after we stock and go catch them, because they're very small as it is, but it's not a standard stocking.
It's typically surplus fish.
Yeah.
Tim is from Oldham County. What are the size of the crappie in Taylorsville Lake, and what's the best way to catch them?
Well, right now, Taylorsville Lake is extremely hot. I'm not gonna lie, I was over there.
That's why you
the other day.
suck. I can't
believe you said that.
There is right now there is a buku number of 8 and 9 inch fish over there, so people should do really well. Now, if you're looking for trophy size, you're probably going to struggle a little bit, but there's plenty of 8s, 9s, fish all the way up to 11 inches. As far as catching them right now, casting little jigs to the banks and swimming them back out is a fine way to catch them. You can also use minnows under a bobber.
Mary Jo's from Clark County, and she's heard us talk about jug fishing. What is it? She wants to know what jug fishing is.
Well, jugging is whenever you have a hook on a line underneath any floating object. It doesn't have to be a jug. You know, when I was growing up, we used old bleach bottles, pop bottles. Now the little floating noodles are becoming popular. But typically, what you do is you just take your jug and you bait it, throw it out in the lake, and you sit and wait for it to start bobbing or moving or running down the lake. If you are interested in jugging, there are a couple of things you need to make sure you do. Make sure that you label with your name and address. It's good to put a phone number on there, and also make sure you know how many you're allowed to have, whether it's in the boat or if you have multiple people with you.
Facebook question, Brent Pomeroy. Is it okay to use goldfish? And do you find lampreys in Kentucky?
Yes and yes.
Yep.
Tristan is from Carter County. Hey, Carter County. How many catfish can you keep from Grayson Lake?
There is no creel limit and no size limit on catfish at Grayson Lake.
It's wide open.
Yep.
I've caught some big flathead out of that lake on jugs back in the day. Okay, Susan's from Louisville. Do they put grass carp in Fisherman's Park outside of Louisville?
Is that a Finn's Lake?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not
I'm not aware.
We may have, if there was a vegetation issue, we may have, and just don't, if you catch one, don't keep it. We need them in there to control the vegetation.
Greg is from Franklin County. Thought he heard that there are Twitter feeds for each fishing district. Is that a fact?
There are, brand new. Every
you guys are
district.
Twittering?
They are.
Tweeting?
Yeah,
what do you call it?
whatever.
I don't tweet. I don't Twitter.
You can go to our website. I looked the other day, and if you click on the fish icon again, and then go down at the and then click on more, at the very bottom, it'll have fisheries Twitter feeds, and every district is on there, and they're sending out all kinds of pictures of big bass they're getting sampling right now.
Cool. Craig is from Jessamine County. Can you set gill nets on Harrington Lake for catfish, buffalo, or Asian carp?
Not anymore. That was one lake that
2011.
a ways back was allowed, but now it's not allowed anymore.
Kenny is from Stanley, Kentucky. How's the crappie spawn going on in Kentucky Lake?
I would think that the crappie spawn is going on right now. That's something that if they're interested in, pick up a copy of our fishing guide and give the local biologist a call, Paul Reister, down there, and he could give them a better answer. But it should be going on right now.
Okay, let me go ahead and ask that one. I'm getting a bunch of these. It's a repeat question, but let's talk about Jerry's from Pulaski County. Is there a special license for residents over 70?
It's over 65. It's called our senior license, and it's pretty much the same as a sportsman's license. It includes your hunting, your fishing, turkey and deer, and it's $5. So as long as you're over 65, you can get that.
What's the best catfish lake in central Kentucky?
In central Kentucky, I'd have to say Taylorsville Lake. Not only channels, but blue catfish.
Dennis is from Owen County. Is it legal to sell snapping turtle shells after cleaning them?
Ooh. He's going to have to call his local game warden on that one. You know, we have just had a recent change in definitions of what's wildlife and what you can sell and what you can't sell. And to be honest with you, he's just going to have to call his local game warden and quiz him on that one.
Edith is from Adair County. Is it safe to eat fish out of the Green River this year?
Yeah, I'm not sure if, I don't remember consumption advisories on the green, but if, you know, check our guide just to be safe, but yeah, she's fine.
Bill Gross is from Fleming County. Are there any crappie in Cave Run, and what's the secret to catching them?
There's a lot of crappie in Cave Run Lake right now. I've heard a lot of great reports these last couple of years. I would say those fish are still in the pre-spawn phase. They're a little bit behind Kentucky Lake. They ought to be able, those fish ought to be vulnerable to a minnow underneath the bobber and fished in that flooded timber.
Mike is from Paducah. Is there still any place in western Kentucky where you can catch flyers? Let's talk about what flyers are.
It's a sunfish species. I'm not sure.
Don't they look kind of like a crappie?
They do. That's something that we have a non-game fisheries biologist in Frankfurt. It's actually called an ichthyologist. So call our 1-800-858-1549 number and ask to speak to Matt Thomas, our state ichthyologist, and he could probably point them in the direction of where he knows those flyers are.
And again, here's all our information if you want to send, as they call it, what do they call it, snail mail nowadays?
Yeah.
Number 1 Sportsman Lane, Frankfort, Kentucky, 40601. Or call our information people. They're the best in the world, 1-800-858-1549 or fw.ky.gov. And in that same thought process, Penny's from Campbell County. How do I send pictures into the one that didn't get away? And we probably should have addressed this on a live show at some point. We get gazillions of pictures of the one that didn't get away, and we love to get them, and we put them on as many times as we can, but we can't do that electronically because we get so many emails that it really takes up space, and we have limited space on our computers. So, and we can't shoot video of them on the screen. So if you will, send those to number 1 Sportsman Lane. That changed a while back. Yeah. Number 1 Sportsman Lane, Frankfort, Kentucky, 40601, and put attention one that didn't get away. And we'll get them on as soon as we can, although we have a pile of them and we put them on in the order that we get them. And we get a bunch of them. Okay, Mark is from Glasgow. What is the biggest smallmouth that you've heard of being caught out of Barren River Lake?
I've heard of several 7s come out of there.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, again, that's unverified.
That's the biggest.
I know I tend to exaggerate a big catch when I catch one, so.
No.
But there's some good ones in there.
Okay, getting some repeat questions here. All right, Kevin is from Hart County. Can you buy bait fish and use them in public lakes?
Yeah,
Yes.
as long as and I think it's to be safe if you're transporting them to keep that sales receipt in case somebody stops them to show that, you know, if you do have shad or whatever in there that you bought them and they didn't come from a lake and you transported them.
Jim is from Fayette County. Is London Dock open now since Lake Cumberland water level is coming up?
I think they'd have to call that dock and ask them.
Dan is from Crab Orchard. Caught a 19-inch smallmouth on Cedar Lake. Is that
There's a few
happening?
in there. Yep, there's a few in there when the lake filled. They were just part of that creek population, stream population. So there's a couple in there.
There's a couple in there.
Bill's from Hart County. When was the last time walleye were stocked in No Lynn?
No Lynn gets stocked every year, and it typically gets stocked end of May, first part of June. So
they're small fish,
yeah.
you know, 1.5 inches or so, but we do it every year. So
it's an annual stocking.
Tim is from Campbell County. What are the chances of getting a boat ramp on the Ohio River in Campbell County?
We've looked at several sites in Campbell County over the past couple of years, and we would love to get a site up there. Everything we've looked at, there's been a little flaw at each site. So we're continuing to look. We're trying. Bear with us.
Bob is from Grayson. I recently bought minnows, and a few of them had spikes along their back and a row along each side. Any idea what that was?
Stickleback.
Yeah, probably stickleback.
What is a stickleback? Explain that.
It's a minnow, isn't it? But it's a minnow that actually has spiny, really thick spines on the dorsal fin. It's native to North America. They do get transported in the bait trade. I wouldn't prefer to use them as bait, but you could.
James is from Davis County, and he wants to know, what's the latest on Washburn Lake, and how are the bluegill population doing there?
Washburn, I'm not sure.
That's
I've had an
Rob's?
update. Yeah, that's Northwestern District. I'm not sure. Best to just call Rob Roll, Northwestern District. Numbers in the guide. They'll have an up-to-date report on that lake.
Kurt is from Jefferson County. He caught 2 muskie on Kentucky Lake. Are they starting to stock a muskie in Kentucky Lake?
I'm not aware. We've never stocked muskie in Kentucky Lake. I know there are pickerel in Kentucky Lake, and without knowing the size of the muskie, so my first comment would be, could they have been pickerel that he actually caught? If he has a photo, send them to us.
Yeah, and also Google what a pickerel looks like. They look like a little.
Yeah, except they're smaller. Yeah.
Okay. And again, if you see me throwing questions away, those are repeat questions. I would not knowingly throw your question away if it was pertinent and we hadn't answered it. Marcus from Kenton County, what's the status of the reintroduction of the river sturgeon?
Of the lake sturgeon?
Lake sturgeon.
Yeah, we have started trying to restore lake sturgeon back into the upper Cumberland River. We have stocked 5 different year classes of lake sturgeon back into the upper Cumberland River and the Big South Fork. I just looked at the numbers the other day. To date, we've stocked over 16,500 fish. The first stocking was in 2008, so we're monitoring it, but it's going to be a long-term project. They're slow growing, late to mature.
Larry's from Fleming County. What's a good place to put in a kayak on Cave Run Lake? Safest place? I'd say any place you can drag one in. That's getting really popular, the kayak
Yeah, it
fishing.
is very good. Yeah.
Jay, are they going to redo the ramp at Lake Bashir?
That's something we're in discussions with about the owner of that boat ramp. We're having discussions with them about the potential to redo the project or perhaps do a long-term lease on that site.
Sue's from Christian County. Why do we not get any fishing reports on the show for western Kentucky lakes? We do, and I think we kind of stagger those from week to week. And you're going to have to start watching the show more regularly. Bobby from Wayne County. What happens in a tournament during the spawn when a female bass is taken away from her nest?
Well, there's a definite chance that they may not return, but there's a lot. It doesn't take a lot of healthy females to produce a lot of young fish. So a few fish that are taken off nest typically won't damage the population.
John's from Barron County. What is the hybrid population of Barron Lake?
I think it's in great shape. I know a couple years ago when we had high floods, the anglers really were very successful at catching a lot of those fish, and we saw a little dip in the population. But I'm trying to remember, I think our biologist over the last couple of years has seen a good population return. I think they're healthy and worth going after.
Deanna's from Lincoln County. White bass fishing. Do you have to keep everyone's fish on a separate stringer if you have a group of kids with you?
Nowhere in the KRS does it say you have to have it each on a separate stringer, but you need to know which ones are yours. In that instance, if she's got a bunch of kids, I would recommend to give them all individual little half 5-gallon buckets, 3-gallon buckets, whatever it may be, and each kid can have their own bucket, and you can even make a game out where they can paint their names on it, and they have a good time doing that. That way you can separate whose fish is what.
Jim's from Indiana. Can you catch spoonbills in the Ohio River with a Kentucky license?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. There is no snagging on the Indiana side, though. Just be careful.
And you cannot sell the caviar.
Here's a wide open question. Ken Mead is from Hardin County. Where's the best place to fish in Kentucky?
I think that depends on what you're after and what you like to fish, but we were talking about this before the show. My personal opinion, the Kentucky Lake tailwater and Barkley Lake tailwater, you can almost catch anything that swims in Kentucky there all year long.
It's unreal.
Yes.
And, you know, wouldn't you like to see through that water and just know what's in there at any given time? Another question about stocking at No-Lin walleye. We do stock
Annual
those
event.
every year. And one more time, we've got this 86,000 times. Harry's from Boyle County, do you have to have a license to fish in your own farm pond if he owns the property?
If you are a Kentucky resident and the pond is in Kentucky, you do not have to have a fishing license if you own that, if your name is on the deed. Now, if you're a non-resident, if you live in another state, then you would have to buy your fishing license.
We want to thank you guys for being here. Great job tonight. We answered a bunch of questions, which I always like. And the U of L Bass Club team, we want to thank them for hanging out with us, as well as the rest of our friends who answered questions back there. Let's see if we can sneak one more in. Tim is from Indiana, and we talked about this earlier, but that disease that they're affecting this fish, could we effectively maybe turn that around and use it as a weapon?
There'll definitely be people looking at that. And, you know, that takes a lot of work to possibly make that happen, but there are people interested.
Danny is from McLean County. Where did Tim get his rod holder? My buddy Randall Gibson used to make that, but I'm looking for another source. And contact us there at the department and we'll try to get you one. Thanks for showing up tonight. We had a great time.
It was fun.
Thank you.